Ryan worked as an engineer on the outer space station called Horizon. The station was not very big, but it was important because it stood on the border between human colonies and the great worlds of the Xelari Empire. Humans and Xelari had agreed to share this outpost, both as a sign of peace and as a way to trade technology. Ryan liked his job. He enjoyed fixing broken systems, checking power lines, and making sure the station kept running. Machines did not lie, he often said. If something was broken, it was broken. If it worked, it worked. Unlike politics or diplomacy, which were full of secrets and double meanings, engineering was simple and honest. One day, he was assigned to repair a conduit in the royal guest quarters. The Xelari princess herself was staying there, something unusual for such a modest outpost. Her name was Illyra, and she had come to meet human leaders and learn more about their culture. Ryan had seen her from a distance once or twice. She was tall compared to most humans, with silver hair and pale violet eyes that seemed to glow in the dim corridors. The Xelari people were graceful, always walking with calm dignity, but Illyra had a different energy. She watched everything with curiosity, as if every moment was a chance to learn. When Ryan entered her chamber with his toolkit, he expected her to ignore him. Royalty usually did not bother with engineers. To his surprise, Illyra came closer and asked questions about the tools he carried. "What is this for?" she asked, pointing at a plasma cutter. Ryan looked up from the conduit. "This? It slices metal panels so I can reach wires behind them." "And this one?" she asked again, pointing at a scanner. "This checks if power is flowing," he said with a small smile. "It saves me from touching the wires and getting shocked." Illyra tilted her head. "Humans have very clever devices. On my world, repairs are done by machines, not people. But you fix it yourself." "Why?" "Because machines sometimes fail too," Ryan said. "Better to have a person who can think and decide." Illyra's eyes brightened. "Interesting." They continued like this for a while, the princess asking simple questions and Ryan giving simple answers. He felt strangely at ease talking to her. Maybe it was because she listened with such attention, or maybe because she seemed truly curious instead of pretending. When the repair was almost finished, Ryan wiped sweat from his forehead and laughed lightly. "You know, princess, you'd make a good wife. You're patient, you listen, and you don't complain even when the power is down." He said it as a joke, just to ease the moment. In human culture, such words were often playful. He expected her to laugh or maybe shake her head. Instead, she grew silent for a long second. Her violet eyes fixed on him, steady and calm. "I accept," she said. Ryan froze. "What?" "I accept your proposal," Illyra repeated, her voice clear and serious. "From this moment, I am your chosen partner." Ryan nearly dropped his tool. He stared at her in disbelief. No, wait. That was a joke. Just a human joke." "I didn't mean," but before he could finish, two of her attendants entered the chamber. They had heard the words. Their faces lit up with surprise and approval. They bowed deeply to Ryan, addressing him in Xelari language, then quickly switched to English. "Honored human," one said. "We congratulate you. The bond is accepted." Ryan opened his mouth to protest, but the attendants hurried away, no doubt to spread the news. He turned back to Illyra, his heart pounding. "Princess, listen," he said firmly. "Humans joke sometimes. When I said that, it was not a proposal. It was just, Humor. Illyra did not look upset. In fact, she seemed amused, though her voice was still serious. Among my people, such words are never spoken lightly. To say someone would make a good life partner is the same as asking for their hand. I have chosen to honor your words. Ryan rubbed his forehead. This is a misunderstanding. A big one. If people think I propose to you, they will respect you, Illyra interrupted. You are now tied to me. And I do not regret it. Ryan was speechless. He wanted to explain again, but he saw that she was not joking. She truly believed his words were serious. Worse, she seemed to welcome the idea. Within hours, the entire station buzzed with whispers. Humans looked at Ryan in shock, while the Zilari greeted him with bows. He was given a private escort and treated as if he were already royalty. His fellow engineers clapped him on the back, some laughing, some envious. Ryan, one of his co-workers whispered, "Did you just marry the princess with a joke?" "I didn't marry anyone," Ryan said, but even he knew the words sounded weak. That night, alone in his small quarters, he sat on his bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about her calm eyes, her steady voice, and the way she had accepted without hesitation. He had meant nothing by his words, but to her people, they meant everything. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. What have I done? Outside his room, two Zilari guards stood watch. For the first time in his life, Ryan realized that a simple joke might change not only his own future but the fate of two worlds. The next morning, Ryan woke to a loud knock on his door. When he opened it, he found two Zilari guards standing tall, their silver uniforms shining in the light of the corridor. One spoke in a firm voice. "The princess requests your presence." Ryan rubbed his tired eyes. "Already? It's barely dawn." The guard gave no reply. They waited patiently, and Ryan quickly pulled on his uniform. As he followed them through the halls, he noticed how other workers looked at him. Humans whispered, some smiling with disbelief, others giving him quick nods. The Zilari, however, lowered their heads respectfully as he passed. Ryan felt his stomach twist. The joke had spread faster than he imagined. They led him into the grand chamber used for official meetings. Princess Illyra sat on a raised seat, surrounded by her attendants. She looked calm, almost too calm, as if she had expected everything to fall into place. "Welcome, Ryan," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "Please sit beside me." Ryan hesitated, but the guards guided him gently toward a seat next to the princess. He felt all eyes on him. "Princess," he began, trying to sound polite, "I need to explain again. In human culture, when I said you'd make a good wife, it was only a playful remark. It was not meant as a proposal." The chamber grew quiet. Illyra tilted her head slightly, studying him. "I understand that humor exists in human speech," she said slowly. "But words of union are not taken lightly in our tradition. When spoken in my presence, they carry weight. You may call it a joke, but I accept it with sincerity." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "If I say I didn't mean it, what happens then? Will your people be angry?" Her attendants murmured among themselves. One of them, an older Zilari with a long robe, stepped forward. "If you withdraw, it will be seen as an insult. The princess does not choose lightly. To refuse her acceptance would mean rejecting not just her, but our people." Ryan's heart sank. He had never wanted to insult anyone. He was just an engineer, not a diplomat or leader. He fixed machines, not political ties. Yet here he was, sitting beside a princess who claimed him as her chosen partner. Illyria turned to him. I do not wish to trap you. But I also believe fate placed these words between us for a reason. Do you not feel the same? Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. He could not deny that something about Illyria drew him in. She was different from the other Zelari nobles, less proud, more curious. And when she looked at him, it wasn't with judgment but with interest, maybe even trust. Still, he was not ready to be anyone's husband, much less a princess's. Princess, he said carefully, I don't know what to feel yet. But I don't want your people to think I insulted you. Maybe, we can find a way to explain this without dishonor. Illyria's lips curved in the faintest smile. Then perhaps we should not rush. You will remain at my side for now. The bond is not yet sealed, but it is not denied either. Time will decide. The attendants seemed satisfied with her words, though some looked doubtful. The matter was not closed, but it was postponed. Ryan breathed a little easier, though the knot in his stomach remained. Later that day, as he walked through the station, Ryan noticed changes. Doors opened for him more quickly. Meals were delivered to him without request. Some Zelari even bowed as he passed. Humans looked at him with mixed emotions, some laughed, some stared with wide eyes, and some whispered behind his back. At lunch, one of his fellow engineers, Myra, sat across from him. She smirked as she stirred her food. So, she said, when do we get the wedding feast? Ryan groaned. Don't start. It was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding or not, Myra replied, the Zelari clearly believe you're her chosen. You know what that means. You're not just Ryan the engineer anymore. You're Ryan the man who may marry a princess. People are looking at you differently now. I don't want them to, Ryan muttered. I just want my life back. Myra leaned closer. Life doesn't go back, Ryan. It only goes forward. Better figure out what you want before the princess decides for you. Her words stayed with him long after. That evening, Illyria invited him to a private walk in the garden dome. The artificial dome held trees, flowers, and a small stream brought from her home world, meant to remind her of her palace. The lights above shifted to mimic twilight. Do you hate this bond between us? She asked suddenly as they walked. Ryan shook his head. I don't hate it. I just don't understand it. Humans marry for love, not politics. Illyria paused. For my people, marriage is both. It binds hearts and also protects nations. When I accepted your words, it was not only because of tradition. I see something in you, Ryan. You are not afraid to speak plainly. You treat me as a person, not only as a princess. That is rare. Her words caught him off guard. He wanted to argue, but instead he found himself silent. She looked at him not with arrogance, but with honesty. For a moment, they stood in quiet. The soft hum of the station mixed with the sound of water in the stream. Ryan finally said, I don't know if I'm worthy of that trust. Illyria smiled gently. Perhaps that is why you are. Ryan's chest tightened. He had never imagined a simple joke could lead him here, standing with an alien princess beneath artificial stars, caught between duty and something deeper he did not yet understand. He did not know what the future held, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be simple again. Ryan woke the next morning with a heavy mind. The whole station still whispered about him and the princess. It felt strange to walk through the corridors knowing that every eye followed him. Some humans grinned at him, some shook their heads in disbelief, while the Zilari gave him respectful nods as if he were already part of their royal family. He wanted to escape it all and go back to repairing machines, but that life seemed far away now. As he carried his toolkit, a message blinked on his wrist communicator. The princess requests your presence in her chamber. Ryan sighed. Of course she does. When he arrived, Illyra was waiting by the window of her chamber. The view of space stretched out behind her, with stars burning against the dark. She turned when he entered and gave a faint smile. Thank you for coming, Ryan, she said. Ryan set his toolkit down. I didn't have much choice, did I? Half the station would chase me here if I refused. Illyra laughed softly. It was not mocking, but warm. Perhaps you are right. Still, I asked because I wanted to speak to you privately. Ryan leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Then tell me. Why did you accept so quickly when I made that joke? Why would a princess agree to marry an engineer she barely knows? Illyra's eyes grew serious. She stepped closer, her silver hair catching the light. Because it was not only about you, Ryan. It was also about my people. Ryan frowned. Go on. She took a slow breath. My world is in danger. The Zilari Empire has stood strong for centuries, but now rivals surround us. Some want our resources, some want our lands, and some want our throne. Many nobles argue among themselves, and they would rather fight each other than unite against our enemies. If I choose a husband from one noble house, others will rise against me. If I choose no one, they will call me weak. But if I choose someone no one expects like you, it changes everything. Ryan blinked. Me? You chose me to shock your enemies. Illyra smiled. Shock them, and also inspire them. You humans are new among the stars, yet already you show courage. Your kind adapts quickly. You face storms with laughter. You survive where others give up. That is why I accepted. Not because of politics alone, but because I believe in what you represent. Ryan rubbed his forehead. He had come here hoping for a simple explanation, but this was heavier than he imagined. So to you, I'm not just a man who fixed your power conduit. I'm a symbol. Illyra nodded. Yes. But you are also Ryan, the man who spoke to me honestly without fear. Do you know how rare that is? Most men I meet bow and flatter, but you treated me as if I were just another person. That is why I listened to your words. Ryan felt heat rise in his face. I wasn't trying to be special. I was just being myself. Exactly, Illyra said. That is what makes you different. For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her. She was more than the glowing image of royalty he had seen before. She was young, carrying the weight of her people on her shoulders. She wanted strength, not empty praise. And somehow, she had decided he could give it. Finally, Ryan said quietly, Princess, I don't know if I can be what you need. I'm not a leader, not a fighter. I'm just an engineer. Illyra's lips curved slightly. An engineer who solves problems no one else can. A human who thinks differently. Sometimes that is more valuable than 1,000 soldiers. Ryan let out a small laugh. You make me sound far more important than I am. Perhaps you are more important than you realize, she replied. Before he could answer, one of her attendants entered, bowing low. Princess, the council requests your presence. They have heard of the human's words and wish to discuss the matter. Illyra glanced at Ryan. Come with me. They will want to see you as well. Ryan's stomach tightened. Do I have a choice? No, she said simply. The council chamber was filled with Xelari nobles, each dressed in flowing robes of silver and blue. Their eyes followed Ryan as he entered, some filled with curiosity, others with disapproval. One elder, with a long crest of silver feathers, stood. Princess Illyra, is it true you accepted a human as your partner? It is true, Illyra said calmly. Murmurs filled the chamber. The elder turned to Ryan, his sharp eyes narrowing. And you, human, do you truly stand by your words? Or was this nothing but a careless game? Ryan's throat tightened. Every noble waited for his reply. He could feel their judgment pressing down on him. He wanted to shout that it had been a joke, that he never meant it. But then he remembered Illyra's words, her trust in him, and the respect she had shown him. He straightened his back. I spoke without knowing the weight of my words. In human culture, it was meant as humor. But I understand now what it means to you. I do not wish to insult your princess or your people. If she has chosen me, then I will not run away. The chamber erupted in noise, some nobles protesting, others murmuring approval. Illyra lifted her hand, and silence fell. You see, she said to them, this is why I chose him. He does not hide, even when pressed. He speaks truth, and he does not flee from duty. The elder frowned, but he did not argue further. When the meeting ended, Ryan walked beside Illyra, his thoughts heavy. He still did not know if he could carry such a role, but for the first time, he felt a spark of resolve. Illyra glanced at him and said softly, "Thank you for standing with me. Whatever comes next, we will face it together." Ryan gave a small nod. Together, he repeated, though the word felt strange on his tongue. As they walked, he realized his life was no longer his own. He was part of something larger now, something that might decide the future of two species. And though fear still lingered in his heart, a quiet strength began to grow alongside it. The news of Illyra's acceptance spread quickly, not only across the Horizon station but also back to the Xelari homeworld. Messages arrived every day, some full of support and some full of anger. Many nobles questioned how a human, a simple engineer, could stand beside their princess. Some even claimed Illyra had dishonored her people by accepting an outsider. The council decided there was only one way to silence the doubts. Ryan would have to prove himself. When Illyra told him this, Ryan almost laughed. Prove myself? How? I'm not a warrior or a noble. I fix wires and engines. Her violet eyes remained calm. The council has chosen the trials. Every suitor of royal blood is tested before the union is sealed. If you pass them, they cannot deny you. Ryan groaned. And if I fail? They will say you are unworthy, Illyra admitted softly. Some will use it as an excuse to weaken my rule. Ryan paced the chamber, rubbing his forehead. He had never asked for this. Yet when he looked at Illyra, standing tall with quiet strength, he knew he could not walk away. Not without betraying her trust. Fine, he said at last. I'll do it. But I can't promise miracles. Illyra's lips curved into a small smile. Sometimes courage is a miracle on its own. The first trial was one of strength. Ryan stood in the training arena, surrounded by towering Xelari nobles, each one a veteran of combat. The task was simple, lift the ceremonial stone, carved from heavy crystal, and carry it across the arena floor. For Zilari, it was tradition. For humans, it was nearly impossible. Ryan bent down and wrapped his arms around the stone. It barely moved. He gritted his teeth, his muscles straining. Around him, whispers filled the crowd. Some shook their heads, already certain he would fail. Then Ryan remembered something. He was not here to beat the Zilari at their own game. He was here to think differently. Setting the stone back down, he pulled off his belt and looped it under the crystal, creating a crude sling. With leverage, he managed to drag the stone forward, inch by inch, across the floor. The crowd gasped. It was not graceful, but it worked. When the stone finally crossed the line, Ryan collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His arms burned, sweat dripped down his face, but the trial was done. Some nobles frowned, saying it was dishonorable. Others murmured with grudging respect. Illyra, watching from the stands, smiled proudly. The second trial tested the mind. Ryan was placed in a chamber filled with puzzles of light and shadow. Zilari challengers moved quickly, solving with the speed of long training. Ryan struggled at first, his hands fumbling across the glowing patterns. But then he slowed down, remembering the way he repaired broken systems. He treated the puzzles like circuits, each light a flow of energy, each shadow a block. Step by step, he worked them out. The Zilari nobles had speed, but Ryan had patience. By the end of the trial, his board glowed brighter than most of theirs. The council could not deny his success. The third trial was one of courage. Ryan was led into a dark hall where holographic beasts roared and lunged at him. The simulation was designed to test bravery, forcing the challenger to stand their ground while shadows of danger closed in. The first roar shook the walls, and Ryan's heart pounded. A massive beast leapt forward, its teeth gleaming. For a moment he wanted to run, but he forced himself to stand firm. He whispered to himself, "It's not real. Just a test." Instead of fighting, he raised his hands calmly and stepped toward the beast. To the crowd's surprise, the hologram faltered, then vanished. The trial ended. The elder of the council announced, "The human does not fight with claws or blades, but he does not yield to fear. He has passed." By the time the trials ended, Ryan's body was exhausted. His arms ached, his head pounded, and every breath felt heavy. But when he looked toward Illyra, standing tall in the light of the chamber, he felt something stronger than his pain. That evening, she met him in the garden dome once again. The artificial stars shone above as she stepped closer. "You did more than I hoped," she said softly. Ryan shook his head. "I barely survived. I dragged a stone, stumbled through puzzles, and refused to run from shadows." "That's not glory." "It is more than glory," Illyra replied. "It is truth. You showed them what a human is. You do not rely on strength or speed alone. You rely on your mind, your will, your courage. That is why I believe in you." For a long moment, Ryan was silent. He realized something had changed in him during the trials. He no longer thought of himself as just an engineer. He had faced challenges meant to break him, and he had found ways to endure. Maybe he was not a warrior or a noble, but he was still something worthy. Finally, he looked at her and said quietly, "I didn't do it just for your counsel. I did it for you." Her violet eyes softened. "And I will not forget that." They stood side by side under the false stars, two figures from different worlds, bound now not only by a misunderstanding but by trials endured together. For the first time, Ryan wondered if fate truly had played a hand in his careless joke. Days turned into weeks after the trials. Life on Horizon Station returned to its normal rhythm for most people, but for Ryan everything felt different. He was no longer just an engineer working in the shadows of the station's machines. Wherever he went, people whispered his name. Some humans laughed, some admired him, while the Xilari guards bowed as if he were already part of their royal family. At first, the attention made him uncomfortable. He missed the quiet days when no one cared what he said or did. But over time, he grew used to it. What surprised him most was how natural it felt to spend time with Illyra. What began as awkward meetings soon became daily conversations. Every evening, after their duties, they met in the garden dome. Illyra seemed to like the quiet streams, the sound of artificial wind moving through leaves, and the glow of the light set to mimic twilight. Ryan liked it too. It was the only place where they could talk without 100 eyes watching. One evening, Illyra asked him, "Do humans often joke about marriage?" Ryan chuckled. "Sometimes. We use it as humor between friends or when we want to tease. We don't usually mean it seriously unless we truly love someone." Illyra tilted her head. "And love, in your culture, is the foundation of marriage." "Yes," Ryan said. "Love means you choose someone not because of duty or politics but because your heart says they are the one." Illyra fell silent, her violet eyes watching the water ripple in the stream. "On my world, love is important, but politics often weighs heavier. Many are forced into unions they do not choose. I have always feared that would be my fate." Ryan studied her face. She looked strong as always, yet behind that strength he sensed something vulnerable. "And now? Do you still feel forced?" She turned to him slowly. "No. With you, it feels different. Unexpected. Free." The words struck him deeper than he expected. For a moment, he did not know what to say. He had entered her life by accident, through a careless joke, yet now she looked at him as if he were more than chance. Their bond grew stronger in small ways. When Ryan worked on the station's engines, Illyra often came to watch. She asked questions about every part, fascinated by how humans relied on their hands and minds instead of leaving everything to machines. She would kneel beside him, holding a light while he worked, her royal robes brushing against the metal floor. "You're not afraid to get dirty?" he asked once, glancing at her smudged fingers. She smiled faintly. "Dirt washes away. Understanding does not." Another time, Ryan joined Illyra for her daily training. The Xilari practiced elegant forms of combat with long blades and flowing movements. Ryan, clumsy by comparison, stumbled more than once. Illyra laughed not in cruelty, but in genuine amusement. "You fight like an engineer," she teased. "Every strike is practical, direct, without style." "Style won't keep me alive," Ryan muttered, holding his bruised arm. "Perhaps," she said gently, "but honesty might." Her laughter was like soft music in the empty hall, and Ryan found himself smiling despite the pain. One night, as they sat beneath the artificial stars, Ryan spoke of his home. "I grew up on a small colony," he said. "Nothing special. We had farms, machines, and quiet nights. My father taught me to repair engines, my mother taught me to listen. Life was simple there. I never thought I'd leave, but I wanted to see the stars, so I joined the engineers." Illyra listened intently. "Do you miss it?" Every day, Ryan admitted. But I don't regret coming here. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have met you. Illyra's eyes softened, and she whispered, and I would still believe that love was only for others, not for me. The silence that followed was warm, filled not with distance but with closeness. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He had tried to deny it before, but now he could no longer ignore the truth. He was beginning to care for her not as a princess, not as a symbol, but as Illyra. Yet not everyone accepted their bond. Some nobles continued to whisper in council meetings. Ryan overheard one say, "The human will weaken her rule. He is unworthy." Another added, "He is clever, yes, but cleverness is not enough. The empire needs strength." Illyra defended him fiercely. "Strength comes in many forms. He has faced every trial and endured. What more proof do you need?" But Ryan could see the tension in her shoulders after each meeting. She bore the weight of their doubts in silence, showing only calm when others looked at her. In private, however, she allowed him to see the strain. One evening she confessed, "Sometimes I fear I have placed too much upon you. If you ever wish to step away, I will release you from this bond." Ryan stared at her, surprised. "After all we've been through, do you really think I'd walk away now?" Her lips parted in quiet relief, and for the first time, she reached out and touched his hand. "Then we stand together." The next days passed quickly. They shared meals, stories, even silence. Ryan found himself waiting for her presence, and when she smiled at him, he felt lighter. He no longer thought of her as only a princess. She was his partner, his equal, and slowly, his heart accepted what his mind still questioned. But just as their bond deepened, a shadow fell over Horizon. Scouts reported that a rival empire had entered Xelari space. Ships gathered near the border, their weapons armed. The council panicked, sending messages back and forth. War was on the horizon. When Illyra received the news, she stood still for a long time. Then she looked at Ryan with steady eyes. "They fear our bond," she said. "They attack now because they want to break it before it grows stronger." Ryan felt a chill run through him. He had thought the trials were the hardest test, but now he understood. The true challenge was yet to come. He took her hand firmly. "Then we'll face them together." For the first time since their meeting, Illyra smiled not with calm dignity, but with true joy. "Together," she echoed. The news of enemy fleets approaching spread quickly across Horizon Station. Soldiers rushed through the halls, commanders shouted orders, and civilians whispered in fear. The calm station that once felt like a city of peace now felt like a fortress preparing for siege. Ryan stood at the edge of the command deck, watching the large screens that showed dozens of ships moving in formation. The enemy banners glowed on their hulls, red symbols of power and conquest. The rival empire had chosen their moment well. Illyra stood tall beside him, her royal armor shining under the deck lights. Her presence calmed the officers. She gave orders with confidence, and her people obeyed without hesitation. Yet when she turned her eyes toward Ryan, he could see the weight behind her calm face. "They want to test us," she said. "They believe fear will break us before the first strike. They are wrong." Ryan nodded slowly. "Fear only breaks those who fight alone. But we're not alone anymore." The council argued endlessly. Some wanted to retreat deeper into Xelari territory, while others demanded a full attack. Ryan listened quietly at first, but when their voices grew too loud, he stepped forward. "You can't fight like this," he said. The enemy knows you're divided. That's why they attack now. If you keep shouting, you'll give them victory without a single shot. The room fell silent. Many nobles looked at him with anger, but Illyra's gaze was steady. "What do you suggest, Ryan?" she asked. He pointed at the star map. "They're expecting you to fight the way you always do. Straight lines. Predictable formations. That's why they brought so many ships. But humans fight differently. We use surprise. We use misdirection. If you let me plan the defense with your generals, we can turn their numbers into a weakness." The nobles muttered in doubt, but Illyra raised her hand. "He has faced every trial. He has earned this chance. We will listen." Ryan spent the night with Xelari commanders studying maps and engine data. He was no soldier, but he understood machines, movement, and pressure points. He saw the enemy fleet not as warriors, but as a system. And like every system, it had weaknesses. "Their supply ships are slower," Ryan explained, pointing to the rear of the fleet. "If we cut them off, their main ships lose fuel and support. They'll be forced to retreat or fight half strength." One commander frowned. "But to reach their rear, we must pass their front lines." "Not if we make them move first," Ryan replied. "We hit them with fast strikes, then retreat before they can respond. They'll chase us. If we guide them the right way, they'll open a gap we can use." The generals exchanged looks, impressed despite themselves. It was risky, but it was clever. When the plan was presented, Illyra approved without hesitation. "We will fight not with numbers, but with wit. Let them learn the strength of human thinking." The day of battle arrived. Horizon Station's defense fleet moved into position, sleek Xelari ships glowing with blue light. Ryan stood aboard the command ship with Illyra. His hands shook slightly, but he kept his voice steady as he reviewed the plan one last time. The enemy fleet appeared on the horizon of space, a wall of red steel and fire. Their commander sent a message across the stars, his voice echoing in the deck speakers. "Xelari, surrender your princess and the human, and we will spare your people. Refuse, and you will burn." Illyra answered with a cold, clear tone. "We do not surrender. Not to threats, not to fear. If you wish to test us, come and see our strength." The message ended, and silence fell. Then the first shot blazed across space, a line of light striking against the Xelari shields. The battle had begun. At first, the enemy pressed hard. Their larger fleet pushed forward, forcing the Xelari ships to scatter. Ryan gave quick instructions, guiding the fleet in sudden turns and sharp retreats. The enemy followed, believing the Xelari were breaking. "They think we're running," one commander said. "Good," Ryan replied. "Let them." The enemy fleet surged ahead, eager to crush what they saw as weakness. But as they moved, their formation stretched thin. Their supply ships lagged far behind, vulnerable. "Now," Ryan ordered. The Xelari ships hidden in asteroid shadows darted out, striking the supply ships with precision. Explosions lit the darkness of space as enemy fuel lines and carriers burned. The rival fleet slowed, confused, cut off from their lifeline. Cheers erupted across the deck. For the first time, the enemy looked shaken. But victory was not yet certain. The enemy commander, enraged, pushed his main fleet harder. Massive warships closed in on Horizon Station itself, weapons glowing with deadly power. Illyra stepped forward. "We cannot let them reach the station. If they fire, thousands will die." Ryan thought quickly. The station was too slow to move, too vulnerable to withstand a full assault. Unless. Divert all shield power to the front, he said. Then prepare the engines for overload. The chief engineer gasped. Overload? That could destroy us. Not if we release the energy at the right moment, Ryan insisted. We'll use it as a pulse. It'll blind their sensors long enough for our ships to strike. Illyra studied him for only a heartbeat before nodding. Do it? The station's engines roared, and power surged through its core. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, but the plan moved forward. As the enemy fleet prepared their final strike, Horizon unleashed a sudden burst of energy. A wave of light washed across space, dazzling the enemy sensors. Their ships staggered, their weapons misfired. In that moment, the Xelari fleet struck with precision. They cut through the blinded warships, tearing holes in their formation. The enemy realized too late that they had been deceived. Their commander shouted desperate orders, but his fleet was already falling apart. One by one, their ships broke away and fled into the darkness. When the battle ended, Horizon Station still stood. Fires burned, shields were weakened, but the people were alive. The council cheered, the soldiers raised their blades, and the name of Ryan spread like fire. On the command deck, Illyra turned to him. Her armor was scratched, her hair loose from the fight, but her eyes shone with pride. You saved us, she said softly. You saved me. Ryan shook his head. We saved each other. None of this would have worked without you and your people's trust. Illyra's voice lowered, only for him. Then let the stars know this truth. Together, we are stronger than any enemy. Ryan met her gaze, and for the first time, he allowed himself to believe it fully. Their bond was no accident. It was the beginning of something greater, something worth fighting for. The battle had ended, but the echo of war still lingered over Horizon Station. Damaged ships drifted back to the docks, their hulls scorched and cracked. Engineers worked without rest, sealing wounds in metal and in people. The Xelari sang victory songs in their halls, but they also carried their fallen with solemn honor. Ryan walked through the corridors, his body heavy with exhaustion. Everywhere he went, people looked at him with respect. Some bowed, others simply smiled with quiet gratitude. He had never imagined his life would lead here. A simple engineer from a quiet colony now stood at the heart of an empire's future. Yet as he passed through the crowd, he felt a question growing inside him. Was this truly his place? Or had he been carried here by chance, a single joke turned into destiny? Illyra found him in the garden dome that night. The artificial stars glowed above them, brighter than usual, as if the station itself wanted to celebrate. She approached quietly, her royal robes flowing like water, and sat beside him near the stream. You are troubled, she said gently. Ryan smiled faintly. I guess I am. Everyone calls me a hero now, but I don't feel like one. I'm just someone who didn't want to see the station burn. Illyra studied his face. That is exactly what makes you a hero. Not glory, not titles, but the will to protect when fear says you cannot. He looked at her, meeting the calm fire in her violet eyes. And what about you? You carry more weight than anyone. Everyone looks to you not just as their princess, but as the one who stood firm when others doubted. She lowered her gaze. I have always known my path would lead to rule. But now the path is no longer mine alone. It is ours, if you choose it. The words hung between them. Ryan's heart beat faster. He remembered the first day, the careless joke, her calm reply. He never thought it would lead here. Now she spoke as if the future of two peoples rested not only on her shoulders, but on his as well. Illyra, he whispered, I don't know if I can be what they expect. I'm not a prince, I'm not trained in politics. I only know machines and hard work. Illyra reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. You know more than that. You know how to see strength where others see weakness. You know how to guide without pride. And above all, you know how to give your heart freely. That is what I need. That is what my people need. Ryan felt the weight of her words, but also their truth. For the first time, he did not see himself as a stranger caught in events. He saw himself as part of them, chosen not by accident but by the bond they had built. The next day, the council gathered once more. The nobles expected Illyra to declare victory and return to tradition. But instead, she stood tall and raised her voice. We faced an enemy who wished to divide us, she said. We faced fear and doubt. But we did not fall, because we stood together Zelari and human. Let this be known. The future of our people is no longer one path but two joined as one. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some nobles looked shocked, others angry, but many bowed their heads in respect. Illyra continued, her voice strong. Ryan fought beside us not as an outsider, but as a partner. He risked his life for this station, for me, for all of you. And now I say before the stars and before this council he is my chosen one. All eyes turned to Ryan. He stood quietly, his heart pounding, but when he looked at Illyra, he found the courage to step forward. I never sought this, he said. I never dreamed of standing here. But I know this much, I will not walk away. If you accept me, I will stand with you. Not as a hero, not as a prince, but as a man who chose you. The chamber filled with voices, some shouting, some cheering. The council could debate for days, but the people's hearts already leaned toward the truth they had seen in battle. That night, Horizon Station held a great feast. Soldiers sang, children laughed, and banners of victory waved in every hall. But Ryan and Illyra slipped away to the quiet garden dome once more. This place has become our refuge, Ryan said softly. Every step of this journey, we've returned here. Illyra smiled. Then let it also be where we begin. She stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. When you joked about marriage, you thought it was nothing. But I heard in it a seed of honesty. Now I ask you without jest, will you truly stand as my partner, not for a moment but for all our days? Ryan felt the weight of the stars above them and the warmth of her hand in his. For a long moment he searched his heart. Then he nodded. Yes. I will. Illyra's eyes glistened with light, and for the first time, the calm princess let herself laugh in pure joy. She wrapped her arms around him, and together they stood beneath the glow of artificial stars that now felt more real than ever. In the days that followed, news spread across the empire. Some still doubted, some resisted, but many celebrated. They spoke of the human who stood beside their princess, not as a servant but as an equal. They spoke of how together they had faced a fleet and survived. Ryan no longer felt like an outsider. He still worked in the engine rooms, still got his hands dirty, but now he also stood in council beside Illyra. He did not try to be more than he was. He offered ideas, honesty, and the steady presence she had come to rely on. Illyra, in turn, showed him the strength of leadership, the art of guiding with both firmness and compassion. Together, they built a bond not only between themselves, but between their people. One evening, as they walked once more through the garden dome, Illyrio looked at him with quiet wonder. "Do you ever think about that moment? The joke you made, the answer I gave." Ryan chuckled softly. "All the time. I thought it was just words. Now it feels like the universe itself was listening." Illyrio's smile held both mischief and warmth. "Perhaps the universe has a sense of humor." Ryan took her hand. "If it does, then I'm grateful. Because it brought me to you. And beneath the stars, real or not, it no longer mattered. What began as a careless jest had become the foundation of something lasting, something greater than either of them alone. A love that had united two worlds. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges yet to come. But for the first time, Ryan felt no fear. He had Illyria at his side, and together they were stronger than any enemy, stronger than doubt, stronger than fate itself. Together, they would write the next chapter of both their peoples.